Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome back for another card video. Today's card uses these Finetec Pearl watercolors. They are so beautiful. There's 12 in a set, and they don't look anything like this when you use them on paper. So I did some swatches here with black cardstock. They are gorgeously shimmery and opaque. So you can see this light color here makes this bright purple. So you really need to have a swatch. So like this blue looks white, but actually comes out bright, gorgeous blue. Anyway, I love these. I use them also on white cardstock. I'm going to show you here. They really don't look nearly as good as they look on the black cardstock. So that's what I love about these watercolors, is that they are totally different than anything I have currently. Now they are kind of similar to the twinkling H2Os, but these to me seem a little bit more opaque. And you can see how shimmery and shiny they are when I hold them up to the camera. They're just beautiful. I decided I wanted to be a little bit more consistent in the brushes that I use, because a lot of people ask me what brush I use, and I kind of bought random brushes. So I bought this set of Ranger artistic brushes, and they have all different sizes in it. So from now on, every time I watercolor, I'm going to be using a brush from this set, and I'll let you know which number it is. The butterfly stamp I used is from this Garden and Bloom set by Stampin' Up. I've used this butterfly on so many different cards. I'm going to stamp it onto my cardstock randomly. This is black cardstock by Stampin' Up, and it is 2 3/4 inches wide. And then I'm going to clear emboss this with some fine clear embossing powder, and I'll heat it to set it. And now I'm ready to color. So what I'm going to do is use the blue in the background. And so I just put a little bit of water on my brush. I'm using number 4 from that Ranger pack. And I'm just kind of randomly dabbing it in between the butterflies. I'm trying not to use too much water because this is not watercolor paper, so it will warp if I use too much water. With the black cardstock, I did notice that this cardstock really does absorb water, so I had to dip my brush periodically, pretty often actually, to get some more water because my paints were sort of drying out a little bit on the cardstock because I was trying to make it really thick. You can do a lot of layers on here, and so you can make it even brighter by letting it dry and then adding another layer on top. You can see as I'm moving along here that I'm not too worried about water staining. So once I lay down the paint, I'll just kind of leave it up there when you can see I'm moving down here and working on the lower part. But when I go back to that upper part, the paint is already dry. When I touch it again with water, it's going to reactivate and blend. So I did not have any issues with water staining or lines in between areas that I had colored or anything like that. So it was really easy to apply, and you can see how shimmery and bright it is. I mentioned the twinkling H2Os earlier, and those definitely are kind of similar to these paints. But I found that those paints absorb a little bit more into the cardstock, so the color is a little bit more muted, whereas these kind of lay on top of the cardstock almost like a pigment ink. So you don't have to worry too much about the cardstock just pulling that color out. So you can see as I showed up to the light here how beautifully shimmery it is. The next step is going to be coloring these butterflies. I'm using the purple. And I'm going to color these the same exact way, just a little bit of water, and the embossed lines are helping me stay in the lines, and now I get this really pretty black outline for my butterflies. So I'm just going to go around and color each one of these. I'm not worried about shading or how I'm doing this. I'm not going to be combining any colors with this. I'm just going to lay down purple on each one of these butterflies. And by the way, I am using that same number 4 brush from the Ranger pack. Now, I wanted these butterflies to pop just a little bit. I'm going to be using this silver in the upper left-hand corner. So I just kind of twisted the pack a little bit so I could get both the paint and my cardstock in the camera. So what I'm doing is I'm flicking upward from the center, and this is the number 4 brush. So as I did this a couple of times and I finished this butterfly, I decided I just didn't like it. There were too many thick lines. So what I decided to do was remove the silver. So I took a baby wipe and I just kind of dabbed it up, and it removed a little bit of the purple paint, but really not that much, and it did take the silver mostly off. And then I went to add more purple and I dropped a huge amount of water down. And so I just wiped that up again with the baby wipe and started over. These paints are very forgiving. So you can see I'm gonna put some purple paint right on top. And by the time I finish with all 4 of these butterfly wings, it looks exactly the way it started. So if you make a mistake, no need to worry, it's easily fixable. So after I finish laying down this purple back on this butterfly, I'm going to start over, except I'm going to start on a butterfly that's already dry. But now I'm using my number 2 brush. It's just a little bit smaller, and I wanted it to be more of a feathery look. So I'm going to start at the bottom and flick upward, kind of like I do with the Copic markers when I'm coloring like a little critter and I want it to be kind of a feathery fur coat. It's much easier to flick upward, which is why I keep rotating my paper around. So I'm actually using less water with this silver because I want it to be sort of a dryish sort of blending look. And I really love the detail that this added to each of the butterflies. So I'm just going to repeat this technique on each of the butterflies. Notice that I used all cool colors. So I had purple and blue and silver. On another version of this card, I used purple and gold together and it just didn't work as well. So I would encourage you to kind of stay orangey red and gold, and then when you do cool, to stick with the silver, and I think that that looks the best. All right, I'm gonna skip to my last butterfly here, and now you can see the final results. It looks so beautiful in person. Seriously, I love these colors so much, and it really catches your eye when it hits the light. My sentiment is from the Summer Garden set by Simon Says Stamp. I wanted something that looked good in a circle. I'm stamping it with Hero Arts black ink onto some Nina Solar white cardstock. I'm going to use my Simon Says Stamp stitched circles, and I'm going to run that through my Big Shot. I'm going to use a pencil to make a mark on the left side, kind of in the center. I'm just eyeballing this, then I'll take my 1/8 of an inch hole punch and punch a hole. I'm going to put that off to the side for a minute while I adhere my butterfly panel to some black cardstock. This is 3 inches wide, so I get about 1/8 of an inch on either side. And I just use tape runner to adhere that. And then I'm going to put some tape runner on the back here. I'm going to thread some white thread from Stampin' Up. And I'm going to put some Scotch foam tape on 1/2 of it, so the half where the thread is coming out. I'm going to position it to see where it needs to go. I don't have this adhered to the card base yet. I'm just adhering it to the butterfly panel because I'm going to wrap it around the back here. So I'll just take my ATG gun and I'll wrap it around, put some tape runner back there, and then cut it off. And then I can adhere my butterfly panel to my card base, which is just a standard Nina Solar white 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I just put the rest of the Scotch foam tape on the other half of that circle, and then I centered it so that the edge of the circle was on the right hand side, so I got a little bit of white on the left hand side as well. And then I just made a bow, and I'm taking a glue dot with my paper piercer, which is how I usually pull up my glue dots, and I just put it right there near the hole, just to the left of the hole, and then I just press down my bow. And that is the card for today. Now I did a couple of other versions with these paints. The first is the same color scheme, except I did a little bit of swiping with the blue in the background. I actually did this before I stamped my butterflies. I just went back and forth and back and forth. It required a lot of water, so it took me a while to dry it and kind of unwarp and dry and unwarp, so I'm not sure I would recommend it. I also used some Dusty Concord on the left-hand side to match the purple. And then finally I did one more with just plain black cardstock. So it's the same purple and silver on the butterflies, but I just left the black plain in the back. And I finished the card off and put a photo on the blog post. So anyway, some fun watercolor for today. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.